Man, I'm tired of this shit.
Dude, I was listening to that. Leave it alone.
This is absolute trash.
I don't care. Driver picks the station. Shotgun shuts his cake hole.
Passenger gets first dibs on everything. I have my finger on the button.
You know what? You want to fight about it?
Yeah.
Okay,
fuck
fine.
you.
Hey,
Fuck
man,
you.
leave it alone.
No.
It's mine.
Turn your trash off. Now look what you did.
Go. All right. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Dissonant Harmonics podcast. I am Frasier.
We weren't even gone. We were just gone like we normally are.
No, I say welcome back every time. Every time I say it.
You said we're back. Back again.
Yeah,
Guess who's back?
He has to sing it almost every single time, doesn't he?
I don't know who you're asking, but yes.
Yeah.
I'm still Josh, by the way. I'm still Josh.
Yeah. Please still be Josh. Don't make me have to explain that one again.
Well, next week we'll figure something out.
Right. All right. So he is still Josh. I'm Frasier. Welcome to the Dissonant Harmonics podcast.
Hello.
And have we got a show for you? Most of the news is going to be handled by Josh today, as I didn't have a whole lot of news to speak of except for one topic. So Josh, take it away.
Did you guys know that As I Lay Dying still sucks?
That's where we're going to start.
Yep. Let's just hit it off the top of the head, because I have stuff that takes more time than that. No, the biggest update is that Phil Sgrosso? Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Sure. Philly Phil finally announced that he is no longer with As I Lay Dying. And if we have the article up and ready to go so we can actually read what he says, it's just more further corroboration of what Ken Susi and Nick, oh shoot, I forgot his last name. What all the other members that have left As I Lay Dying in the last 2 weeks have all kind of said, that the environment was becoming toxic, that he just no longer wants to be affiliated with it. But it's like we kind of talked about, it kind of seems more like he's securing his rights within As I Lay Dying before he leaves, before he can officially say, like, I am no longer a member of this band. Because
Yes.
Phil.
So
It
here's
has
the
so many
exact words.
Okay.
Let's go over the exact words real quick. Hey everyone, thank you. These are Phil's. This is Phil's quote. Hey everyone, thank you for your patience as I took time to gather my thoughts before speaking on the current state of As I Lay Dying. With recent events, including the departure of band members and the cancellation of our European tour ahead of a new album release, it's clear we're in a difficult and serious situation. Simply put, recent actions have shown that As I Lay Dying no longer offers a healthy or safe environment for anyone involved, whether creatively, personally, or professionally. After witnessing some concerning patterns of behavior, I've realized that I can no longer, in good conscience, enable further actions that could negatively affect anyone working within this space. For these reasons, I feel it is best in my best interest to completely distance myself both creatively and personally from As I Lay Dying. I also want to share my full support of Ryan, Ken, and Nick, the other three members that have left that don't include the tour manager, who made the choice to step away recently. I'm grateful for our accomplishments and friendship over the last 3 years. With 21 years that I have dedicated to this band, it does not sit well with me to leave or abandon what I've considered my life's work. I don't feel that I or others should be forced out like so many have in the past. After all that's been put into this, I believe that with the right adjustments and restructuring, our music can continue to thrive and explore new possibilities in a healthier environment. Over time, As I Lay Dying has been held back by dysfunction, and I feel it is no longer my responsibility to bear that burden. Thank you to anyone who's shown support for me and the music of As I Lay Dying. I'm looking forward to putting my energy and creativity into new, more positive ventures in the near future. Take a breath. That's it. You're just sitting there.
So let's Spark Notes this. I've been on almost every single As I Lay Dying album, and I want to make sure that I don't burn that bridge completely so I still get the royalties.
Right.
Because he was on from... So he's not on the first album. He's on Shadows Are Security and then on.
Right.
Because their first album was Frail Words Collapse, and I forgot when that one came out. But yeah, so let's think about this rationally. Woven War's third album should be coming out soon, right?
Well, maybe, because Phil technically is the only member that left Woven War. Everyone else is still technically a part of the band, except for Phil, who left, not for bad reasons, but because he wanted to focus on his solo project, Poison Headache.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's the one with Internal Affairs vocalist.
Yes.
He was also touring with Seosin when they made their big comeback with Anthony Green on vocals. I know that he was playing guitar with them because I think, what's his name, Justin Chancellor left to join the Used, and then they had like a big internal blow up between them and him. I want to say it was Justin. I could be wrong, but there was like a big internal blow up with Seosin, and that guitar player that came from Seosin got kicked out. Justin Shikowski. He left to join the Used, and then while he was with the Used, Phil came in and played guitar, and then I forget what happened, but I know that the Used kicked him out, and he had kind of what seemed like a mental breakdown during his time in the Used, and hasn't gone back to Seosin or the Used. So right. I know that Phil was a touring guitar player with Seosin for a little while.
He's an official member now.
He's an official member of Seosin.
Yes.
I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm gonna look.
No, I promise you he is. I already looked into that.
Man, this sucks that Cove Reber came back as the singer. I don't like Cove. Anyways, yeah, so we've had no info come from As Lay Dying itself still. They still list as, Three Storms Ahead is still available for pre-order. I still find this really interesting that Shaped by Fire is still not on any streaming service.
No, it is. So, it's up. It was back up.
Oh, it is?
Yes. You didn't look into this very far, did you?
I don't listen to As Lay Dying. Like, I don't actively like really search them out. I have Ocean Between Us in my car, and that's it. So I kind of wonder if Phil has more writing credit than we think on Shaped by Fire.
I would assume so,
since he's one of the only original members left.
Right.
But I don't know. I'm just waiting for Woven War's third album. But now that Josh is in Spirit Box, I don't think it's going to happen.
Right. Yeah. No. Well. Yeah. I have a feeling that like if they had the drive to get Woven War back together, which mostly was, honestly, if you go back and listen to Woven War, most of the lyrics, I'm assuming, based on what I picked up and read between the lines, were honestly about Tim, it seemed like. They were kind of like hopeful, but also kind of in this like, hey, you need to get your stuff together and be a better person type kind of mentality.
Yeah, because I've been actually going back and listening to the only two Woven War albums, and I definitely get that feeling more on the second album, because that's the one that it's a little bit darker, the production's a little bit heavier, and yeah. Shane is doing more screaming on that album.
Yeah.
But I mean, Oh Sleeper had their like second renaissance after Woven War's second album came out and their new album came out, so I kind of wonder if they even have really time. But I mean, look at that. Woven War has a whole new roster of past As Lay Dying members to actually record a new album.
Right. And maybe they'll do it.
Better do it.
Yeah.
But
it'd be cool.
I'm interested to see what's going to happen with this this new As Lay Dying album to be released. I kind of want to see how this release is going to go.
Yeah. Yeah, well, if it gets released at this rate.
I would imagine, I mean, I don't know if you can really pull an album like that, like so close to, it comes out in like a few weeks, doesn't it?
I honestly don't know when it's supposed to come out.
It's supposed to come out, I believe, in November. And we're in November. Unfortunately, we're in November. But anyways,
Yeah, they haven't. Well, that's a big thing is the tour and the album. What's gonna be happening with either one of them? Well, obviously the tour is canceled, but what they're gonna do with
well, the European tour is canceled, which
right.
I also there's just so many weird
the Through Storms
choices.
Ahead is the new album, and it should be coming out here on the 15th, which is in a week and a half.
It seems like such a weird thing for a US band to go through their album release tour in Europe.
Right? Yeah, I agree with that. Like, weird.
Yeah.
But maybe they have a bigger market over there.
Yeah, I mean, metal's more of a bigger genre over there.
I do know that Alter Bridge does the same thing. Like, they sell out whenever they go to UK for some reason, but not America as much.
Well, yeah, because like I said, metal music is more a general genre over there, and especially when it comes to metalcore, melodic metalcore, like that kind of definitely has a bigger following out there. But anyways,
Right.
I'm going down a rabbit hole trying to figure what happened to Jordan Mancino.
Right. Maybe we should move on to the next topic then.
We should move on to the next topic. Hey, do you how much do you like Slipknot?
I like Slipknot.
Well, nobody likes their new logo apparently, and everybody's losing their goddamn minds over it.
Right. Yeah, I've seen it. I was very wondering what was going on with it when I saw it.
I guess I'm more confused about why it's such a big deal. So Slipknot redesigned their.
I think it's only a big deal because people are have already been claiming it'll be the end of the band, and the end is nigh, and now this is just one more nail in the coffin towards that end.
But how would you say that a band is ending with it coming out with a new logo? I feel like a new logo is more like trying to drum up interest back into them as much as possible.
Yeah, but people are thinking they're changing too much and stuff like that. Probably.
Well, I mean, when you name their last album The End so far.
Right.
But no, they've redesigned their logo so it doesn't have the 90s barb that everybody had tattooed on their arm in the 90s.
Yeah, the tribal logo with the barb on it.
And we talked about this before we started recording, but I wasn't aware of this, but Joey Jordison was the one that apparently had designed that original logo, and now Slipknot has settled with Jordison's estate. And I kind of wonder if it's connected in some sort of way.
Yeah, I mean, very much could be. That would make a whole lot of sense, seeing as, if they're in the middle of a lawsuit over everything, and he made the logo, they're like, well, we're not going to keep paying you guys royalties on something, so.
It sounds like Joey Jordison actually had a lot to do with what Slipknot is, because I know that Slipknot originally was supposed to go by, I think, one or two different names, and Joey was the one that is often claimed to be the one that came up with the name, but Joey always denied it, saying that it was a group effort, but majority of the group referred to it as being being Joey's idea.
Well, I think a lot of things. Well, if you look into it, Paul Gray and Joey were like the main.
They're like the original
guys.
Members.
Yeah, the main guys, and I think also along with Jim Root, probably the main songwriters. Obviously, Mick probably did some stuff in there too, but I think creatively, a lot of the band before Joey's death was driven by Paul and Joey.
Did you see that interview or that article with Mick Thompson talking about how everybody in Slipknot would sit there and make fun of him because he wanted to put more guitar solos in Slipknot music?
No.
Yeah, apparently it was a bigger thing when they first started, saying that he wanted to do these kind of big, flashier solos in their songs, and I guess was shot down pretty much every single time, saying that that's not what Slipknot does.
Oh, okay.
It seems like there's so much different creative juices within Slipknot. It kind of seems like it seems weird to me that they've kind of chosen the sound that they've kind of stuck with for so long.
Right.
Without branching it out too much further. But, I mean, if you change the logo enough to piss off a lot of fans, I'd hate to see what happens if they started doing, gigantic guitar solos and you know, contemporary rock style music or contemporary metal style music, not just doing the Slipknot sound.
You mean like Stone Sour?
No, not necessarily. I'm thinking more like, you know, putting like some sort of like bigger metal riffs in there, letting Mick or letting Jim go on like a big giant guitar solo for a while.
Right.
Like an Avenged Sevenfold style. As much as I don't want to compare the two, but like a big lead and rhythm.
Right.
But they'd probably get killed on stage.
All right, what else is next?
Tim Alexander from Primus is starting to kind of explain more of his mentality of quitting Primus. So it came out the week before that Tim Alexander up and quit Primus. And I believe they're supposed to be doing some big festival shows or something like that here coming up here soon, and maybe another tour. The big thing is that allegedly he had become very hard to come in contact with when it came to trying to confront him about his decision to leave Primus right before these big shows. And according to Les Claypool, and I forget the guitar player's name, was stated that saying that Tim Alexander had just said that he had lost his drive to play music. It kind of lost the joy in playing music, and that was all we were told. But Tim has come back and said, hold on now, this is kind of out of context. Yes, I did say that, and I will not deny it. But what's not being brought out in social media and in media outlets is that I did say also he's mentally and physically exhausted. Therefore, he's not finding any joy in playing music with them anymore. He's been going through a lot of physical and mental rehabilitation over the last couple of years to kind of work with his traumas, work with his, physical, not injuries, but just physically how he feels after all of his shows and how his playing style is.
Being on the road that long takes a toll on your body. It does.
Yeah, there's no denying it. No matter how much in shape you try and be, no matter how much you practice, it's still gonna do wear and tear no matter what.
Right.
And that's kind of what he's saying is that, hey, I've been growing myself and I've been healing myself, and I'm not finding any joy with doing music anymore because I'm expanding my horizons and trying to be as good of a person and how much better of a person I can be. And saying that, yes, I'm leaving Primus. There's no good and easy way and good time to do that. But there's more to it than just saying, I don't find any joy in this. This does not spark joy and I'm done.
Right. Yeah, he's worn out. I mean, they're getting up there in age. He's worn out.
I think Tim Alexander's like in his 60s now.
Yeah, they all are. And as I pointed out to you before we started the podcast, and for people that don't know, this is the third time Tim's left. And not that it's what he's ever said. He's just kind of always just quit quietly. There has been rumors going around for a long time that not that him and Les don't get along, but Tim really likes the progressive and the music that they make, but Les likes the kind of the humor and the goofiness of it. And that was kind of a part that Tim was struggling with, is he wanted it to be a little bit more of a serious band and be seriously musical, whereas Les likes to have fun and goof around and make jokes for songs and stuff. And I think that's also part of the struggle, is he's been in and out of the band for years, multiple times. And I think a lot of that, so I think this is kind of like maybe the last time. He's like, all right, we're up there in age, we're older, I'm tired, let me do something else, and you guys keep going. Yeah,
because I know he's quit 2 or 3 times. I know that Primus went on hiatus for a while, too. And Les did his other projects like Frog Brigade and, oh God, there's like 1 or 2. Les Claypool I don't think he ever stops creating.
Right.
And so now what this is going to end up being for these shows is that Danny Carey from Tool is going to be filling in on drums, because apparently he fills in on drums for them basically whenever this comes up.
Yeah, he does. He's good friends with Primus.
Yeah, so now the Primus part of the set is also going to be incorporating members of the Fun Guy Ensemble and Frog Brigade, which I guess are also going to be playing these shows or something like that. or if they're not, then he's bringing in members to basically kind of fill the set out and make it more of a celebration of all these different parts of music within Claypool's brain that these members have all kind of worked on, hit or miss over the last couple of decades.
Right.
So, I mean, good for him. At least he's acknowledging that, I just can't do this anymore. I mean, it's not like Bill Ward from Black Sabbath that's too fat to play drums anymore.
Well, and Vince Neil that shouldn't be singing at all.
He's too fat to be Vince Neil.
Right. So with that, I don't think we have a whole lot more time for any more news stories. Is there anything else you desperately need to hit? Because we got to get to our topics.
We could talk about Alpha Wolf real quick.
Yeah, hit that. Oh, that was a big deal.
Okay, so October 30th at the Warfield in California, security guard is being put on investigative leave for, quote-unquote, dragging the lead singer of Alpha Wolf, Loki? Oh, no, I can't pronounce these new kids' names.
Josh is old.
I am old. So I believe his last name is Ko. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not going to listen to it. For dragging him off the stage. So, allegedly what had been going on this whole show, according to Ko, was that the security guards were kind of verbally abusing the bands on stage, that they weren't doing a very good job of protecting the fans. There's a few people that have corroborated saying that they've been injured during the crowd surfing, or doing crowd surfing, and security guards are barely helping them be able to get out of there safely. One person reported that apparently he was dropped on his head and sprained his ankle because the security guard didn't even try to catch him as he went over the railing. I mean, we've crowd surfed. We know how crazy it can get. So, I mean, you could also just not have caught that person. Right. But it still sucks to be that person.
Oh, yeah.
But apparently security had been a problem during this entire show. This is with Dayseeker, Kingdom of Giants, and Catch Your Breath. And what had happened was Ko had been calling out the security guard in particular, saying that he's blatantly just being an asshole to everybody, and took the guy's hat off of his head and threw it on stage. And, that is a shitty thing to do, but it doesn't warrant an assault, in my opinion.
Like I told a guy last night, I was working for those of you who don't know, I bounce at a bar part-time. As I told a guy last night who was trying to get into the middle of a situation, de-escalation, not escalation. Grabbing the security guard's hat and throwing it on the stage is not going to help your case when you have a guy that's already being unreasonable. Yes.
So what ended up happening was the security guard grabbed Ko by the ankle, yanked him off the stage riser off the stage, and damaged a lighting rig in the process of the impact of Ko hitting the ground. And when their guitar player, let's see, Alpha Wolf's guitar player is named, oh man, I just had this, Sabian Lynch, proceeded to throw his guitar at the security guard, which, is that de-escalation or is that escalation?
That's escalation still, yeah.
We're riding the escalator up.
If we had a video of it, we could see this better. But it could also, it is escalation period in a story, but you could also think that, hey, this guy just grabbed my singer and is pulling him into the pit, and all these guys are about to try to jump him. So, or maybe he was just being that much of a jerk that even the guitar player was sick of it.
Yeah, that's kind of more my opinion, is that, this guy is watching his friend get yanked literally off the stage and down onto the ground, and you stand on a stage riser down to the floor level, that's a good solid, 8 or 9 feet off the ground.
Well, depending on the venue, but yeah. I mean, some places like El Corazon, it's good 4 or 5 feet, but that's still a fall.
That's still gonna hurt.
Oh yeah.
Especially if you broke a lighting rig on the way down too.
Yeah.
So, their guitar player chucked a guitar at him, tried to hit him with that. So, a fight broke out between Alpha Wolf and all of the security guards, which very promptly ended the show very quickly.
Right.
So there are videos there. The videos I've seen that have come out with it is more showing more aftermath, like the stage lights are already off or they're already on, and it's Alpha Wolf's members yelling at security guards that are there, trying at that point to try to tone it down a little bit. But like I said before, that security guard is now on investigative leave. He has been asked to not come back till they figure out exactly what they're going to do with it, and the venue has come out and said that, while this is very bad and we do apologize for the bad things that happen, like, no, this guy is not here for right now until we figure out, what the hell is going on with this. And,
Right.
it might come out that this guy's had more problems with other bands. Like, maybe this isn't the first time he did it, or he was just, he was having a bad night and he was just sick of it.
Right. So
We don't know.
Yeah. No, and I mean, this is like what happened a while ago with the security issues that somebody was having. I can't remember the slam band that was on tour, but they quit the show because of security. We covered it over multiple episodes.
I do remember that, but I'd have to go back and see.
I just can't remember the name of the band. But this might get more traction because those aren't small names. Catch Your Breath, Dayseeker, Alpha Wolf. Those aren't small bands. Those are reasonable size.
Dayseeker, but I believe Dayseeker was the headliner.
Yeah, they are.
Especially if you stopped a show and didn't resume after one of the opening bands did that, and Dayseeker doesn't even get to go on. Like, you have a lot of people that are going to be very upset about that.
Oh yeah. So, all right, moving on to the topic, and this is where I take over a little bit this time because I want to go on a giant tirade. So I'm gonna let Josh start it after I introduce the topic. Because I'm going to slam my head into a wall if this happens anymore. I'm very tired of bands doing this. So our topic is, and our opinions on, bands like Falling in Reverse. The specific one that I'm pissed at is Enemy, ENMY, which I love that band, but their latest album pissed me off to no end.
Tell them why it pissed you off.
Memphis May Fire kind of did this on the last album with Misery. They released a whole slew of tracks. Bands that release, and for the record, I'm giving Fall in Reverse a slight pass because their songs have been out for 4 years, so it's a little different.
I'm giving Falling Reverse a full pass on this because there's more of a backstory with Ronnie Radke's opinion about this that I do agree with him on it. It's just he's getting kind of lumped into this because, again, so the main thing is that
The topic is bands that release like 9 tracks and say they're releasing an album and release 9 singles over the course of a year, and at the end of a year they give you an album and it's only got 10 songs on it and only one of them is new. The one that really pissed me off about this was Enemy.
So
and they did it with
Frasier is mad.
And they did it with their last album too. They released single, and then they're like, oh, by the way, here's just one place where they're all sitting. Like, they had both of their albums they have done this on, and it drives me insane to no end, which is why, like last week we talked about, Lakeview's album was 18 songs long. I'm okay with that because half the songs were already released as singles over the course of like a year. So at least at the end of the day, you had all those singles, and then they also gave you a full album's worth of new material.
Right.
Enemy literally released an album that's only 10 fucking songs long, and only 1 or 2 of the tracks wasn't a single over the course of the past 365 days, if not longer, and that makes me want to choke babies.
Well, I don't know about that, but it definitely makes me want to slap a nun.
Yeah.
So, that being said, no, I agree with you on that. Why we say the Falling Reverse gets a pass on it is because Ronnie Radke put out the song Popular Monster, and as we all know, it was 2020.
That was in 2020.
Oh, I know. And that was, I think, the only song that they released that entire year.
Yeah. And then they came up with, later, I think it was 2 years ago, they came out with Zombified, Voices, and there was one other one that I can't think of right now.
Watch the World Burn, I think.
Yeah, Watch the World Burn all kind of came out about the same time.
And then they did the Last Resort reimagining, too.
Right. And then recently, before they put this album out, they released their single with Jelly Roll, but that was announced as a lead-up to the album.
Yeah, so Falling Reverse kind of gets a pass on this because Ronnie Radke had said many, many times that basically Popular Monster, they put so much time and work into making that song as good as it possibly could be, and they won so many awards, and they've won so many different things just off of that song that Popular Monster was the only song that Falling in Reverse released that entire year, and that's all they had to release that entire year. That's the one that made like enough money to run Falling in Reverse for an entire year.
And then some. It had like stupid amounts. I mean, let me put it this way. If you look at it right now on Spotify, just for people that like this kind of stuff, Popular Monster on the album version, on the album the album Popular Monster, not the single, has almost 400 million hits on Spotify.
Yeah.
And this album came out, and I quote, August 16th, 2024. Less than 2 months ago.
So
and
not only did we have how many views and streams when the song first came out
on the single version. Yeah.
On the single version, now re-putting it back out on part of this new album on top of it is going to drum up even more. Like, Ronnie Radke at this point doesn't even need to do anything anymore. And he had said before numerous times that after Popular Monster came out that Falling in Reverse may or may not even release albums at this point. They may just put out, you know, one solid ass single like every year or two. And they have, I believe, 3 or 4 albums of back material that they can play for shows. You know, Ronnie can play, as far as I'm aware, can at least play some stuff from the old Falling in Reverse, from the first EP and album that he wrote.
Mm-hmm.
And then play these bigger singles and still be able to play the big festival shows, be able to recoup any money production-wise that he has to do for just that one song every year or two, versus trying to spread out the writing between all of it. And it came from the fact that Coming Home was so well maligned.
Yeah, Coming Home was... And I think everybody knows that Coming Home was a weaker album. The only song on the album that I honestly remember liking is Fuck You and All Your Friends.
I actually really solidly like that album. It brought me back to kind of that old Falling in Reverse, but more like... It was more him stretching his legs and saying that, you know, Falling in Reverse doesn't have to be just a metalcore act.
Right, and I totally agree. I don't think it was a bad album, but I think for what everybody expected, it wasn't what they were thinking it was going to be, which is why Fuck You and All Your Friends was the only song that got big, because it was that old school style. But yeah, it also, just for another side note, I looked this up really quick just to check it out. On YouTube, Popular Monster, the video alone, has 163 million views, which in YouTube money is stupid. Like, I think Ronnie, like, not to keep hammering this because we actually have to get back to the actual topic and give our opinions on it, but Ronnie released a photo of his bank account and it had like $10 million in it or something stupid like that. I'm not sure if that was real, but honestly, at this point, just because of Popular Monster alone, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah. But to divert back, I think, I mean, in my opinion, I feel like you see more smaller bands releasing more of their material before the album comes out to keep the interest going, I guess, in a way.
Well, and see, this is the problem I have. So, jumping off of what you just said, I texted you this because I was so distraught about it, especially with Enemy's album, because I love every song that Enemy puts out, and then I get an album that I've already listened to for the past year. And the thing that bugs me, as you said, I'm going to jump off what you said, these are smaller bands that are doing it. Memphis Mayfire, Enemy, you know, these bands that are kind of
I hate to put them in the same category as this, but Cane Hill really kind of did this with their newest album.
They're still doing it. I just looked this morning and it had a new release. Cane Hill had a new release yesterday. They're like slowly dropping. Yeah, they're
the album.
Right, I've thought this album, that Cane Hill's album, has been released like 5 times now. Because it just says EP under it, and it drives me insane, because I'm like, okay, when is the full frickin' album coming out?
So not to plug somebody else, but listen to Garza's podcast where he interviews Cane Hill.
Yeah.
And they actually do bring this up, as Spotify's algorithm is very fucked when it comes to releasing singles.
Right.
Because they'll collect singles into one collection instead of putting out one single per song.
Yes.
They'll combine it into an EP, and then that confuses everybody because then Spotify is the one listing it as an EP when there's an album coming out. So then it starts to confuse a lot of people.
When you release singles on Spotify, you have to have separate artwork for it. You have to designate it as a single and everything. And even at that, when you release a single, sometimes it'll put 3 or 4 songs under the same single. So if you look on, like right now I just did this, if you look at Falling in Reverse and click on the Zombified single, it actually has Zombified and Voices in My Head in there.
Yeah.
But it's not zombie. And then you go over, if you scroll, the next spot is voices in my head, and it's only voices in my head. So let me start by saying this. I understand, especially like new bands like Lakeview that were coming through, and Enemy on their first album, I understand this, because they're like, hey, instead of releasing a full album, because it takes so much time, energy, and money to do a full album. If you don't believe me, I'm literally about to go into a studio and do 4 songs. It's $750 a song, and I'm basically DIYing it with a friend of mine in my house. Not renting a studio space. I have all the equipment I need. Like, we're not programming the drums. He's going to play the drums, but he's using Get Good Drums as the program. And then he's going to play the actual parts, but use the sounds of Matt Halpern's kit from Periphery. And it's just a way to do it. Like, he still has to play it on an electronic kit, but it's going to have that sound so we can tune it to whatever we want. Anyway, point being, it takes a lot of money to make an album. So a lot of these bands that are new, like Lakeview and Enemy, on the first albums, let me say this. This is only for first albums. They release a whole bunch of singles over time. And they're like, just to drum up, because what it does is it drums up popularity, drums up interest, like you said, and people see, oh, this band keeps releasing a single. I like this single. I like this single. I like this single. Echo Stone did this too. I like Echo Stone. They're kind of like a new version of Seether. But they keep dropping singles constantly. Well, then after like 2 years, when they have a collection big enough, it creates a big bang news-wise when they go, hey, we're going to release an album. And that album is mostly just going to be all the singles you've had over the past year and a half, because they're a new band. So they like, basically what they're doing, like I'm doing, DIYing it, they're like, hey, we have enough money to do a single, let's do a single. A couple months later, hey, we have enough money to do a single, let's do a single. And after all this time, they're like, well, we have enough songs out to constitute making an album, and it's a news headline to say we're releasing an album, so let's do it. Your first album, you get that option. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, you get a pass on that.
After that, it doesn't make monetary sense to do this, because as a new band, you have to drum up support and create a fan base. After that, you have a fan base. Release your 3 or 4 songs in the months leading up to the album coming out, but it doesn't make any sense to me, monetary-wise, why you would release singles slowly over time after you've already created a fan base, and then all of a sudden just release this album that's just got a whole bunch of songs on it, because now people are going to go to the album and they're not going to, like, you know, most people listen to singles. They do. Like, I hate it, but they go to, like, the one song they love and leave it on repeat or whatever. What the hell did you just throw?
There's a bug on my blinds.
Oh, did you get him?
He's upside down on the windowsill and he's flailing around, but I don't think he's dead yet.
Okay.
But he's not making noise.
Go get him. But anyway, it doesn't, to me, I don't understand this idea of, it doesn't make any sense to me why you would then take all these singles and package them up in an album and spend the time and energy and money to repackage them all as an album when they're already in single form on Spotify or whatever. You don't add money that way. I mean, I get it. Some people, not a lot, but some people that don't know the band are going to say, oh, a new release from this band. I'm going to look at the album and listen to it. But most of the people that are already listening to this already have listened to these singles hundreds of times. So I get it. You might get like a 5% bump because it's a new album release. But I don't see the energy reason, the time reason. Someone would have to come in and explain it to me as to why they do this. I might reach out to some of my friends in the industry and see if they would be willing to share why, because it doesn't make monetary sense. No, like the monies don't just pop up out of nowhere because you dropped an album, especially when that album's full of singles. Lakeview, on the other hand, that makes sense. If you go to Lakeview's Spotify page, other than their massive 2 or 3 singles that like got them notoriety, all their other top songs are actually new songs off the album that people are discovering. And that's the other thing that we need to talk about, is when you drop an album with no new songs, like when you don't have a new song on the album, that doesn't create you more revenue. So it would be smart to have more songs that people can listen to, because then people are finding new songs that they'll put on repeat or listen to over and over again. And then you have more plays to listen to that create money for you. So yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. My ADHD is just going nuts trying to do the math in the head. I look like that meme of the girl that's like got all the math equations bouncing around.
The only thing that I can really kind of sit back off with is you put out 5 or 6 songs off of what's going to be a 10-song album, and you have all of these singles that come out that drum up interest, and then you come out with an album that's got half, 3/4 of the album already out. The only way I can see yourself really making your money back off of it is by drumming up the interest enough for maybe that person to then turn around and say, okay, well, I've heard 5 or 6 of these songs on this streaming service. Now the album's coming out. Now I'm going to go physically or order the physical album.
Right.
And have that sent over to me. So then I don't have to go back and listen to XYZ singles. I have the entire album as a whole.
Well, and that's the other thing. A lot of these bands aren't even dropping physical albums anymore.
You're seeing that in the gaming industry now, too. I know Alan Wake 2 had this thing where they had said they were releasing straight digital and that's it. And I know that a lot of people got very upset. I know I got upset because I like physical media.
Well, it's also the way that the gaming industry is going, especially with Xbox creating Game Pass, which is basically just Netflix for video games.
Stupid as fuck. PlayStation, I know that they came out with the PlayStation 5 Pro and you have to charge an extra $70 just to have a goddamn disc drive.
Right. I'm going to look now.
Anyways.
While I'm talking to you, I'm going to look at something. Okay, so I take that back. Enemy does have physical copies of both of their albums.
Okay, so there you go. So
there is that aspect to it is, hey, we're releasing an actual physical album that you can buy. But again, not that I'm being like a naysayer or anything, or being kind of curmudgeon-y, but I don't think a lot of people are buying physical albums. So I don't see the monetary, like I said, I would have to ask Enemy or anybody like this, do they actually get a bump in pay, basically, from dropping a physical album? Because first you have to get them printed, you have to get all the copyrights done for it, you have to, everything like that, you have to get it distributed, and then when you send them out to people, you got to charge a shipping fee. Like, do you guys actually make a whole lot of money off physical CDs anymore? And especially when you just drop an album.
I can reach out too, because I know that Andrew's newest band he's in, Maldician, recently just came out with like a new set of shirts, and I know that they're working on new music. So I'm going to ask him as they start releasing their music if it's kind of the same mentality with it.
Right, because I went out when I dropped my album, my acoustic EP, and when I drop my next one, they will go on streaming services and be physical at the same time. Period, end of story. Because I want money from both aspects. But like Enemies released 10 songs over the past X knows how long, then spent, let's say, $1,000 to get 1,000 or let's say 1,000 CDs printed. So does the money they're going to make off those physical sales actually outweigh the cost that they even had to create to make the albums, the physical CDs? So
see, my biggest complaint with this is that
there's no new music.
I always view singles as a single to an album should be the trailer to a movie.
Agreed.
You should put out one. If you're a metalcore band, put out 2 or 3 songs at max.
Give me. I always say 3 is fine, 4 is pushing it, because I want a slow song, I want a heavy song, and I want a medium tempo song. And if you give us a 4th one, okay, but the album had better be 12 songs long, not 10.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even like having a quarter of the album. I know when Cannibal Corpse came out, their last album, I believe there was only 2 singles off of it that came out of the whole 12-track album.
Right.
But to be fair, you know what you're getting with a band like Cannibal Corpse. I mean, they've been around for 40 years, 30, 40 years. So you know what you're getting yourself into. But no, I do think that you should be releasing singles that are kind of showing you how broad of a horizon your album's going to cover. Or come out with, Cannibal Corpse could have just came out with the single for Bloodblind, and that would have been more than enough for that entire album, because you know what you're getting.
Right.
But with newer bands, sometimes they are, their first albums are kind of testing the water, and they're kind of dipping their toes in different genres, so they're kind of trying to put out like, hey, here's our heavier material. Oh, here's our lighter material. Here's the pop rock ballad that, is probably we're going to try to get on the radio. And like in Falling Reverse's case, I mean, I don't think releasing the songs was ever really planned on being an album in the first place.
Right. Yeah, and
So
that's again, Falling in Reverse, I'm only using them as an example because they did it, not because they weren't justified. Enemy.
Well, I'm thinking also of like Live a Lie is releasing singles and singles and singles, but I don't think that James is ever really anticipating releasing a full album.
Right. And that's the other thing. How do I put this? If you release a whole bunch of singles over 4 years, like I said, and it's over 4 years, not over the course of a year, right? Like that's my big hiccup. And let me get to my point. Let me get all the way through this because I'm going to get to a point that this is what bugs me about this the most. Is you release a bunch of singles like Ronnie did over 4 years' time, right? Then you come back and you drop an album and you say, hey, we're going to specifically put all these songs in one spot as a physical collection and on streaming so that you guys can have them in one spot. And then that makes sense. Like, hey, we've explained why we're doing this. When you're just doing it for a regular album, it drives me nuts because you're just doing it for just having them collected. But it was like you were releasing trailers all year long. Now, here's the part that bugs me the most about this, because this is the part that drives me nuts, is when these albums get released, like Enemy just did, and like they did on their last album, now they're going to take a year off and not release anything. So it's like, I've gotten 10 songs released to me over the course of a year. You, quote-unquote, dropped an album of all the same songs, and now you're going to go on tour and not drop anything for the next year. Like, either you need to keep the singles constantly coming, which I will say this, I think Enemy's done a pretty decent job of. They took a break after Breaking Down came out, and they slowed down a little bit, but then they started dropping Silver Bullet and Sacrifice and Burn. They kind of kept the singles coming, but if you're going to do this, where you just release a bunch of singles and then put them all in a collective place, you need to keep the singles constantly coming. You cannot do the average, for people that don't know, the average cycle of a band in 2 years' time is most contracts are either 2 or 3 year contracts. You have to have a new album every 2 years. 3 Days Grace does them every 3 years. Tool does them every millennia because they're bored.
Every 10,000 days.
Yes, every 10,000. That was actually a great joke. Good job. But most bands, what you do is you drop an album. Timer starts right there. You got 2 years to drop another one. You go on tour for about a year, maybe a year and a half, and you play all the songs live and you do your live show, and that creates more revenue for the next album and also to live off of. You are writing while you're on the road. You're creating new music while you're on the road, always. Like, that's just kind of what you do to save time and energy. You have your laptops and your studio setups, small ones, portable rigs, in your bus or van. Then after you've toured for 12 or 18 months, you come back home, you get a few weeks off, and you go back into the studio with all the songs you've written, or you go into the studio and start writing more material. And this is the typical cycle. Drop an album, go on tour for a year or a little over a year, go do an album, go record a new album, go tour on that album, and it's a 2 year or 3 year cycle. When these bands are just dropping, like, if you're not going to do that, where you're like releasing a giant collective of work that's supposed to hold us over for 2 years, and all you do is drop a few singles every couple of months, you need to keep the singles constantly coming, because you're competing with bands that are dropping 14 songs, 12 songs, 10 songs every 2 years, and you're dropping 10 songs over the course of a year, taking a year and a half off, and then going back to singles. Like, we're not even getting an album when you come back. You're just getting us one song at a time. Drives me nuts. I like it the way, personally, I love the way Wage War did
his
their
nuts
last
have been
one.
driven.
Right. I personally love the way Wage War did their last drop. They gave us 4 singles, kind of. Well, no, they gave us 3 singles, and then Blur got dropped after the album came out. Blur's video dropped. So they gave us Magnetic, which was a slower, medium-paced song that did have a deathcore breakdown. They gave us Tombstone, and they gave us Nails. So they gave us 2 heavies and a slow. And then after the album came out, they gave us kind of another mid-range, slower melodic song. That works great. Motionless in White does this great. I don't know what Breaking Benjamin's doing. They spent 5 years not doing anything, and then they've dropped a single, which tells me that, hey, more music is coming, which would be great. and Awaken was a pretty decent track. So anyway, I need to get off my soapbox because I think I've beaten this to death, and we have it's already 50 minutes in, and we still got to get to album reviews, which I'm gonna love what Josh has to say. Do you have anything else to put a nice little bow on this and get me off my rant train?
I think you're absolutely wrong all the time. So
tell me something I don't know.
That's all you get. No, it depends on the band, in my opinion, and it depends on the content they're putting out with the music, and then what the entire album as a whole is going to be like. Like Neobla Viscaris kind of did that with their last album. They only released, I think, 2 or 3 songs off of it, but that album is also only 9 songs long. Granted, the 9 songs are like 17 minutes long.
Right, exactly. The 9 songs are obnoxiously long every time, so it just kind of depends on the band. I think, honestly, like putting out multiple, like that many singles on a multiple song basis kind of shows that, I guess, I don't want to be overly rude about it, because I am overly rude about everything, that it almost shows inexperience to say, hey, I don't know.
Here's 9 out of 10 songs to keep your interest, and then the last song comes out. It's almost like you put out the album and you put out 1 extra bonus track on a deluxe edition.
Right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it feels like. Well, and here's again, my other big gripe with the music industry lately. Again, we've talked about this already, so I'm going to hit it and quit it. And this is the other problem. They drop 9 singles. The album's only 10 songs long, which is like the minimum requirement for an album. And now Enemy at least have longer songs. Most of them clock in about the 3-minute mark, but some of them hit almost 4 minutes, so I'm okay with that. Like 7 out of 10 will be 3 minutes-ish.
Yeah.
But we're getting, like, the singles you're dropping are super short songs. And then the album you're dropping is the bare minimum requirement for an album. So, like, you got to give us more than this. Like I said, I love Enemy to death. Their songs are frickin' quality. I love every single one of their songs. They've only released a couple of ballads, and even the ballads are bangers. But you got to give us more than a 10-song album. Like, when I see 10-song albums, they had either be amazing fucking songs, top to bottom, or, like, this has got to be, like, the only time you do it. Like, hey, we were rushed. We didn't have time. We're kind of low on creative juices. We're giving you the 10 best songs we have. Be patient with us. The next time around, we'll get back to you.
Right.
So, yeah, if I see a 10-song album, my thought process is every single one of these songs had better be good because they cut all the fat down. That's how I think about it. Like, if I see 10 songs... When I grew up, it was 12. Like, the average was like 12 or 13 tracks. I think the first album I ever got with 10 songs on it, and I thought it was short, was 1,000 Foot Crutches, The Art of Breaking. It might even have 11 tracks, which I still thought was short. But I was like... Every single one of these songs is flat out amazing. Could be a single on its own. Because they trimmed all the fat and only put out what they needed to put out. That's okay. But if you're just going to drop an album that's 10 songs long after 9 songs have already been released, you got to give us more than that. Like, you're not trimming fat at this point. You're just, here you go. So
I grew up with wanting bands to usually have 12 tracks on their albums, but yeah. I also was outside of the internet age, so it's like... Mm-hmm. You got the radio song, you got the radio hit.
Right.
And that's usually what I heard, and then that's usually what I base off buying a new album off of. I did that off of All Hope Is Gone from Slipknot. I heard Psychosocial and was like, all right, cool, I like it. It's Slipknot, I'm going to buy the album.
Right.
And that gave you, I think, 11 songs on that one. Same thing for Trivium. I heard their Master of Puppets cover and was like, okay, I'm going to go check out Ascendancy.
Right.
And that was a 12-track album, 15 if you count the special edition.
Well, and here's the thing. Let me put it this way. When we were buying albums as kids, when we were buying CDs, if you saw a 12 or 13-track album, you were willing to pay $15 for it, give take. But if you saw a 10-track album, that price tag had better say $10.99 on it and no more. Because if it was more than $10.99, I'm not paying you more for that much.
But you're figuring you're kind of doing it from the old iTunes algorithm of doing like $1.29 per song.
Right. So... Anyway, let's get to album reviews. We beat this horse to death and then continued to kick it, especially me. Do you want to do my album first or yours? Do you want to do the good one or the one you hate?
Fuck, dude. Let's do yours because I have things to say about yours.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you what it is so that this gives context before Josh starts ranting. I chose a band called Chase Atlantic. Their album is called Lost in Heaven. For those of you that don't know who this band is, they're technically not a rock group at all. But
there's no technically about it.
No, there is a but. There is a but.
No.
And butts aren't gross. So they are a dark pop group is what I would call them. For those of you that hate mumble rap, you'll probably hate this. It's like Kitty Bop, kind of dark. It's on the darker side, though. It's two brothers and their best friend. When they started, though, here's the kicker, and this is the but. They used to be a rock band. And when they play live, they are a rock band. The lead singer has that high-pitched, kind of massively auto-tuned style voice. But when he sings live and talks, and they do acoustic versions of their songs, like full acoustic guitars. And his voice still sounds exactly like that with no auto-tune on the mic. His voice is just really high and kind of nasally. This new album they put out, in my opinion, I think they're leaning more into that pop direction, especially with the lyrics. I'm going to brag a little bit and plug them. Their second album was called Phases. It's a purple album. Almost all of the lyrical themes on that album are actually really dark stories. Their big hit off that album was called Heaven and Back. Lots of references to heaven, by the way. It's actually about a girl that goes to a club, meets some friends, starts doing heroin, overdoses, and then survives. And a lot of people don't know that because it's disguised in this bubblegum, hip-hoppy, dark pop vibe. As I said, when they play live, which I have seen them live, they actually become a rock band. All the members play instruments. The two brothers, Mitchell Cave, he sings. He doesn't play anything live, but he does do keyboards and guitar in the studio. The older brother, Clinton Cave, plays saxophone and guitar, and then their best friend, Christian Anthony, plays guitar and sings lead vocals as well. They trade off. So when they play live, they hire a bassist and a drummer, and all their songs actually change entirely, and they become rock tracks. Which, well, like I said, when they started, before they signed to a certain label called Warner Brothers, who have been known to screw their artists over, they actually showcased, and there's a video of them showcasing themselves as a kind of semi-quasi punk rock pop band with guitars and amps going and drums and everything. So
these guys are from Australia, too.
They are. So I sent this to Josh to see what he would think, thinking that he wasn't going to like it. I like this album. It is a little samey the way through. This is the first album of theirs that I've kind of been on so far. I do need to listen to it more and let it grow on me, so I'm going to hold back my rating right now, because right now I'm only going to give it like a 7 out of 10, because this is the music I can sleep to and have a good day, and this is kind of like my guilty pleasure of music. Some of the lyrics, as like cheesy and poppy as they are actually kind of clever. I forgot the exact line, but it's like 2 perks, 1 Xan, that's a hat trick. And, you know, stuff.
Yeah, I remember that line specifically because I was reading the lyrics as I was listening to it.
It's off the song Doubt It. The song is, I'll give them this, their lyric wording is actually very clever for being like this, like, cocaine, drug-loving, goofy group. Josh won't like it. I gave it a 7 out of 10. I encourage people to go at least check them out. And if you don't like this album, check out their first album that's just called Chase Atlantic. It's got a red rose on it. It is dark pop, basically. And it is cheesy, and it's my guilty pleasure, and no one can stop me. So, Josh, you go ahead.
Well, I disagree with the term guilty pleasure. I was always taught that it's not a guilty pleasure if you enjoy it. Don't take any sort of shame into that. But take shame in listening to this album, because this album is fucking trash.
No, it's not. It's awesome.
Fucking trash. So, you remember a few weeks ago when you thought that I sent you an album as a joke.
Uh-huh.
And you listened to it and you're like, there's no way anybody can like this album. And I had to reiterate, like, no, I actually do really enjoy this album. I forget their name now. They're a band from Vancouver, I believe. Yeah, no, I don't like anything about this album, so I thought you were trolling me on this.
I kind of am, because I was actually seeing if you would like this at all. I didn't think you would, so this was mostly me trolling you finally once in my life, but I also do actually like this band. Like I said, I don't think this is their greatest album so far. I think this kind of leans more into the women, drugs kind of side of cars, bling kind of side of their music, but there are still some good tracks. And again, I'm going to re-listen to it again and see if I change my rating. It might go down, I'll be honest. I'll tell you next week because I haven't had a whole lot of time to sit with it, but the singles I've loved so far, it's a goofy, it's a fun little album. I encourage people to check them out because they make me happy inside.
I just don't really see, like, I'm going to sound like a dick with this, and I don't really care because I sound like a dick with everything.
No, you can sound like a dick. It's okay. This is an album that I sent to you to see if you
unleash the dick.
Yeah, do it.
So, all right, here you go. I feel like this is a very much a lackluster attempt to try to make something that's going to transcend a genre between mumble rap and rock. I know you've brought them up before. I know you've talked about them actually sounding more of a rock band in their live show.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you're going to be able to hold that banner up and say, hey, we sound like a rock band at our show, come to our show, you should really put that on your album and say, also, we can do some rock on our albums as well, no matter how many albums deep we're into this process. I just really feel like it's this. I hate to call out my town here, but this is something I expect to hear in a lowered ass Honda driving around Memphis. Is just the mumbling and bass, and that's it. And all I can hear is just the thumping, and I say to myself, okay, well, maybe the lyrics redeem itself, and they don't. You use the word zany in my entire presence, whether I have to hear it or read it, I get visually upset.
Right. You don't like the new kids speak.
No, I don't. I'm 32 years old, man. I can barely talk as is.
Right. Yeah, this is definitely for the kids.
It's not. What is that? What is that song? What is that album from? I Set My Friends on Fire. I don't like it, or I don't understand it, but the kids like it, or something like that.
Right.
No, it's not for me. It's not for me. I listened to about halfway through. I stopped. I had to go back and kind of finish it. Begrudgingly.
Yep.
But
this is me returning fire. Remember what I will do to you.
I mean, oh buddy, don't you worry. There's some stuff coming out. No, it's not my favorite. This is not what I actively try to go out and listen to. And I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's not for me.
Right. No, yeah, no. I absolutely. This is like I was telling my coworker about this because I was sitting there kind of bopping around and he's like, what are you listening to? I'm like, you'd probably hate it. He's like, I probably won't. I was like, it is like mumble rap-esque dark hip-hop with a saxophone, but they all play their instruments, stuff like that. And he's like, yeah, I probably wouldn't like it at all. You're right. Like, this is that album that people are like, you listen to this? I'm like, not only do I listen to it, I love it. So... I wouldn't listen to
this around anybody except if if I was wearing my Cannibal Corpse shirt or my Exhumed shirt just to try and be a troll about it. Be like, oh, here's my Exhumed shirt. Oh yeah, by the way, here's what I'm listening to.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, let's get to your album because it is, first off, your album is incredibly enjoyable. So let's start there.
Fuck yeah, it is. So, my album is The Nothing That Is from Fit for an Autopsy.
Mm-hmm.
And I will start out and say that I fanboy to Fit for an Autopsy.
As well you should.
They're one of my favorite, more progressive deathcore bands that have come out.
Okay, am I wrong? I'm going to cut you off. I apologize. Am I wrong in saying that, and not in a bad way, I'm like, either this is where Currents got their inspiration from, or these guys took inspiration from Currents? Because I feel like Currents is like a much more guttural, like fist punch version of
here's your follow-up question to answer your question with a question. Was Currents produced by Will Putney?
I don't know.
And if they were, then yes, they have a correlation because
this sounds like not in a bad way. This sounds like a really, really good, more tight Currents album. And that's not a diss to anybody.
Well, Fit for an Autopsy's been around for a lot longer than that.
Exactly. So let me back up. Current's album sounds like this.
Yes. So, Fit for an Autopsy has been experimenting with clean vocals since the 2017 album Great Collapse.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't really until Sea of Tragic Beasts from 2019 that they really started, like, they don't, it's the weird place that deathcore is sitting in now, like especially like progressive deathcore, where some of these bands that have been around, because Nothing That Is, I believe, is the 7th album that they've put out.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the 3rd album that they've actually been experimenting with clean vocals. And the nice thing I think about Fit for an Autopsy and like Whitechapel especially, like Whitechapel's going to hold that banner high as being like the deathcore band that did it.
Right.
We're not talking about Suicide Silence because they fucking suck, and I will not acknowledge their clean singing.
So, just Googling really quick, the producer for, at least for The Place I Feel Safest, was Andrew Wade, so...
Okay, so yeah, Will Putney. If Will Putney didn't touch it, then it might just be more of a coincidence kind of thing.
Yeah. But this, like, I loved it. Like, the first track, Hostage, I was like, oh, hell yeah! And I'll be honest, I'm going to say something I shouldn't say. I haven't listened to any Fit for an Autopsy. And I was like, great, it's going to be all screaming the whole way through and blast beats. And then the end of Hostage, he just starts singing. And I was like, yes! Oh my gosh, this album's amazing.
So, Fit for an Autopsy is kind of one of those weird bands that I first got into Fit for an Autopsy back on Hellbound, which is 2013. Mm-hmm. That is going to be more of your actual deathcore sounding stuff. Like, it is still kind of more proggier, I guess, in a way, because it's not all blast beats, and it does have more kind of rhythm and groove to it. Hellbound was also their last album with their original vocalist, Nate Johnson. Nate Johnson and Greg Wilburn both left, and Absolute Hope, Absolute Hell is the first one that I really got into with them. That's the first one with their vocalist that they have now. But the biggest through all with Fit for an Autopsy is that all of their music is written, recorded, and produced by Will Putney.
Right.
And Will Putney is also a producer on a lot of deathcore albums, a lot of progressive deathcore and death metal albums. So if you find songs and albums that sound similar to this, chances are Will Putney has a hand in it. Will Putney, like, never stops working. I swear I know he's in Fit for an Autopsy, but he does not tour with Fit for an Autopsy, because when I saw them, he wasn't there. He produces and records guitar for them, but he doesn't tour.
Right.
But he is on tour with Better Lovers, which is the new band from Greg from Dillinger Escape Plan.
Right.
So imagine how that sounds, knowing that the producer and recording artist from Fit for an Autopsy and Greg from Dillinger Escape Plan have a new band together.
Mm-hmm.
But no, Nothing That Is, like, I don't like using the term progressive deathcore very much, just because you open a lot of doors that it's really hard to kind of keep track of, like, what can qualify and what doesn't qualify as this. Fit for an Autopsy, I feel like you can say that in a pretty hopeful manner.
Right.
Will Putney's put the best together for Fit for an Autopsy. Like, they're not like a studio made band, but Will Putney does make this band as top notch as he possibly can.
Oh yeah, now I'm looking at his whatchamacallit, his resume. This is a hell of a resume for albums.
It's like Jason Sukoff that recorded Trivium's albums. Like, once you start digging into how many albums he's touched, you can kind of start getting a feel for it.
Yeah. But
Will Putney is, like, in my opinion, the god producer of deathcore.
Yeah, The World Is Our Enemy, My Enemy Now by Upon a Burning Body, which is my favorite album by them. The World Is Ours by Upon a Burning Body. Multiple Thy Artist Murders album. Fight the Silence by For Today. Absolutely.
Yep.
Multiple, like Moss to Flames. Oh, he's done pretty much every single Upon a Burning Body album until it got to Straight from the Barrio. Then looks like he jumped off after that.
Yeah. So, if you like any of those albums, you're obviously going to like the Nothing That Is.
Let the Ocean Take Me by the Amity Affliction.
Yep. Will Putney has been around for a minute, and he has done nothing but hone in his sound and honed in the bands that he's worked with. Mm-hmm. And whatever doesn't work and he puts into Fit for an Autopsy just makes Fit for an Autopsy even better no matter what.
Right.
So Nothing That Is actually the first album of theirs in a couple of years that I have not pre-ordered. I didn't get around to it, but the last 2 albums, like I pre-ordered, made sure I've had them on my regular rotation as they come out, and this one is no exception.
Yeah.
This one came out in October 25th, 2024, and the nice thing about this album is that their lead singer Joe Badolato, he just goes by Joe Bad on Instagram. Every album he experiments more with his voice. This one I feel like he definitely was trying to get back into like doing the lows and the gutturals that we kind of lost on the last 2 albums.
Right.
Because Sea of Tragic Beasts and Oh What the Future Holds both had some more mid-range to kind of accompany the clean singing that he was doing with it. Oh What the Future Holds had a couple of like deeper gutturals and squeals on it. Nothing that is definitely has more songs that he is able to hit those gutturals and stick with it. Like Spoils of the Horde is probably honestly my favorite one, track 2 off this album.
Right.
And they can easily go from like a hard, heavy, fast deathcore song like Spoils of the Horde and then jump into like Red Horizon or Lust for the Severed Head, which kind of goes slower.
Yeah.
Without losing the tempo and losing
the energy.
The listener.
Right.
Yeah. And I know that they've been putting themes, more and more themes of like environmentalism in their albums. They've definitely been going into like more bigger themes than just standard deathcore themes.
Right.
So like Great Collapse was talking a lot about like dependency on oil and fossil fuels. Sea of Tragic Beasts was more talking about, you know, overpopulation and talking about when resources run out kind of thing. I'm not entirely sure what this one's trying to hit with it, but I'll have to kind of dive deeper into the lyrics and kind of get back to you on that one. But this one definitely feels like it has it. They always have a message to say. They always put out only the best tracks. But this kind of goes back to what you were saying. This album, I believe, had 3 singles come out of 10 songs.
Right.
But each of them were different. Hostage was one of the singles that came out. That was one of them that is a heavier track, and it opens the album, but then ends on that clean singing note.
Right.
But no, Lower Purpose, I believe, was the other single off that one. That one's also just a heavier, just monster of a song on this album. But no, this one gets my rare like 10 out of 10. I personally, like, besides the fanboy aspect of it, like nothing about this album bothered me. It sits at a cool, you know, just under 45 minutes.
Which is,
again,
a long album for today's standards.
Yeah, no track is under 3 minutes on this song, and the longest track, there's 1, 2, 3 songs that are over 5 minutes.
Yeah, but they're
so you're still getting quality. You're getting quality music, and you're getting full tracks out of it. And their 3 guitar attack on all of these songs, like it doesn't really leave you wanting anything more off of it. I mean, you can pretty much just end this album and just have a fucking smoke and call it a day.
Right. All right.
No, and I've seen Fit for an Autopsy live, and even without Will Putney on guitar with them, they still fill out their sound live. I did catch COVID from that show, and it almost killed me, but you know, it was definitely worth it.
Right. Yeah, I give it an 8 out of 10 just because it's not 100% my thing, and I can only do like the super heavy stuff for so long. But this is a solid album. Again, I might need to let it grow on me, like the Chase Atlantic album. The Chase Atlantic album might slide down in my rankings, and this album might slide up, but we'll see. But I give it an 8 for now.
Yeah, there was to put it to you simply. Their last album, Oh What the Future Holds, I have that shirt cut into a cutoff tank top to go to the gym at, and when that album came out, that was the only album I listened to at the gym for like 3 weeks.
Right. So with that, we're going to wrap it up. We gave you an extra long episode today because last week's was only 50 minutes. We will catch you all later. Welcome, or thank you for listening to the Dissonant Harmonics podcast. My name is Frasier.
And I might always be Josh. We'll see how it goes.
Catch you later.
Goodbye.